What's up, YouTube? JM Comics here, and I saw Spider-Man No Way Home on Monday, and wow, I gotta say, it blew away my expectations and completely proved me wrong. So, if you saw my Will Spider-Man No Way Home actually be good video, then you'll know I was definitely wrong. Because I thought this movie was gonna be really bad, thought it was gonna be overstuffed, and attempting to do way too much with too little time, but I was wrong. This is a great movie. But before I go into depth about the different aspects of this movie, villains, the opening, all the references, I'm first gonna say massive spoiler warning for this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, go see it if you're a Spider-Man fan, or even if you're just a general Marvel fan, or just a movie fan. Go see it, it's great. But watch the other movies first. And I was also gonna say, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more Spider-Man content. Now let's talk about the whole movie, and I'll do it in sort of sections. So I'll start with the opening. The movie opens up in a way I'm very happy it did, going over what happened at the end of Far From Home in the after credit scene, showing us the immediate fallout of Mysterio revealing Peter Parker's identity to the world. And I really liked that scene, even though most people were like, the beginning of the movie is really slow and I don't like it. I liked everything throughout this movie. Like, until the midway point of this movie, I'll get more on that later. The whole movie was great, okay? The beginning and the end. And many people were saying the beginning's too slow for their liking, but I was completely fine with it. It kept me hooked the whole time, like, for many different things. First off, I just liked the sense of panic at the beginning when everyone found out Peter Parker was Spider-Man. It was just so chaotic, so random, so perfectly melancholic. And I also liked all the references throughout the beginning, such as Daredevil himself. Like, I was in a movie theater with a bunch of Marvel fans, I'd say, because, like, my family and some friends. But most people didn't understand that reference, besides me. So I was like the only person there clapping when Daredevil caught a brick, and everyone else was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, I mean, I can understand people complaining about Doctor Strange helping Spider-Man and that whole thing. I'm a little bit upset about that too. I talked about it in my other video about Spider-Man, will it actually be good? But it's just kind of a stupid premise that Doctor Strange and Spider-Man accidentally let all this happen because of irresponsibility. And Doctor Strange is an adult. He should know what he's doing. So, yeah. That part kind of bugs me, but the rest of the opening is great. Next, we're going to talk about the villains in this movie, and that is one of the key aspects of this movie that carries it high for me. The main villain of this movie is undoubtedly Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, and I never was quite the fan of Green Goblin in Spider-Man 1. I mean, he felt sort of just evil for the sake of being evil, even though there was a drug in him that was making him go crazy, the green stuff or whatever. But he was still sort of, I don't know, too stereotypical in his evil ways. But in this movie, yeah, he's sort of still kind of evil just for the sake of it. But I will say he's more interesting because he actually does some heinous things we'll get to later. But yeah, Green Goblin gets the biggest improvement in this movie compared to his first appearance because now I actually kind of like Norman Osborn as Green Goblin. But I will say the suit in this movie is trash, okay? Like, it's trash. It's just sort of, I like the armor, but there's no mask. There's nothing. There's like goggles and it's kind of stupid. I didn't like the suit much in Spider-Man 1, but I was like not that offended by it, like most people are. But I don't like his suit in this movie. I'll just say that. He's more like Hobgoblin than Green Goblin. But who cares, I guess. The actual character is cool. And that fight scene at the end between him and Tom Holland's Peter Parker is amazing. Like, just awesome.
We're gonna have a hell of a time.
Next is Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius, who is my favorite villain, well, besides the Vulture. One of my favorite. Like, I'm debating between Vulture and Dr. Octopus. That's what I've always been doing that since I saw Homecoming. But for the sake of this video, I'll just say Dr. Octopus is my favorite. But yeah, he was my favorite going into this movie, and he didn't really change that much in this movie. He was the same character we met over there in Spider-Man 2, and like in Spider-Man 2, he ended up turning good while most villains weren't, but for a different reason. Because they injected him with the formula, well, not the formula, they injected him with the microchip that fixed his brain before they cured the rest of the villains. So, yeah. So he was sort of the same as last time, but his tentacles are just so menacing, and he has such a menacing presence. So I really like him, yeah. Next is Electro, played by Jamie Foxx. And I think he was also, like the Green Goblin, very much improved by this movie. Because I didn't really like him at all in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I didn't mind him as much as most people, but I still didn't like Electro in that movie. But in this movie, A, he's not blue anymore. And he's also kind of funny and charismatic. So, yeah, he's way better. And I'd say he's one of the more just plain out evil of these characters as we see them in this movie. But I like that he gets a redemption arc because I felt kind of bad for him in Amazing Spider-Man 2. So they give him redemption. So that's good. There's also the Sandman and Lizard. Both of these guys don't have much character development in this movie. I'd say I like Lizard better in this movie than Sandman. Because Sandman's whole goal in this movie is he wants to get home, but he's sort of helping the villains who don't want to get home. So his whole goal, well, No Way Home, huh?
Oh, that's why they call it that.
His whole goal is very contradictory throughout this movie. So yeah, Sandman's one of the weaker of, like, probably the weakest of the 5 main villains. And the Lizard, I mean, he's okay. He's the Lizard. I mean, what'd you expect? Yeah. And also, if you haven't checked out my villain ranking of, or my top 10 Spider-Man villains, it was made before this movie came out, so it's a little bit irrelevant at this point, but you can go check it out on my channel, so why not? Next aspect of this movie I want to focus on is the references. There are so many comic book or meme references in this movie. It's absolutely amazing. Like, for one, Norman Osborn talks to Peter Parker, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker, and he's like, you know, I'm something of a scientist myself, which is a really clever callback to the meme from Spider-Man 1, where he goes, I'm a bit of a scientist myself.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
So yeah, I really like that. Another really good callback comes in the more spoilery sections of the movie near the end, when, I'll just say it now, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield appear in this movie. That was amazing. I was so happy to see them, especially Andrew Garfield, considering I feel like he got really robbed of another Spider-Man movie, while Tobey Maguire's felt like it came to a good conclusion, his trilogy. But yeah, there's a really funny reference where Tobey Maguire is complaining about his back, which is really funny, because in real life, Tobey Maguire had back problems during filming Spider-Man 2. And there's another meme that came out of Spider-Man 2 where he talks about his back.
My back! Oh, my back!
So it was really hilarious to see Andrew Garfield cracking his back for him. It was just so awkward. And one of my favorite jokes was when they were all talking about defeating aliens, and Andrew Garfield's guy was like, I haven't defeated an alien, because Holland defeated Thanos, and Tobey defeated Venom. So yeah, I don't know, that was just funny to me. So besides the actual villains and main characters of this movie, Doctor Strange is also involved in this movie. I wouldn't call him a main character in this movie, regardless of what the posters give off. But I mean, he's an integral character to this movie. So, yeah. And I find it very funny that he was trapped in the mirror dimension for most of it. That was just hilarious to me, because Spider-Man used math to stop a sorcerer. So, yeah. And I'm pretty hyped for Doctor Strange 2. The trailer ending of this movie wasn't the greatest, not gonna lie. I didn't understand what was going on for that trailer, a lot of it. I noticed America Chavez, Scarlet Witch, and Doctor Strange, and more though, but everything else in that trailer was really confusing to me, so we'll just see where that movie goes. But I'm pretty excited for it. Even though it has its comedic moments, this movie is not afraid to get serious and talk about major topics such as death and responsibility, which brings me upon Aunt May's death, one of the saddest scenes in the MCU. I'd stand by that. Because Green Goblin runs through her with his glider, but she's sort of still alive, but you know, she's bleeding out, and she tells Peter her final words, and they're just so profound. And it's the iconic line, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like this whole trilogy of movies, they've been setting him up for his official origin story, but it's also sort of been his own advent. Like, it adds a whole new meaning to Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, that they're sort of Spider-Man's pre-origin story years, and it's just spectacular! The whole movie in general handles comedy way better than Far From Home did. Far From Home felt like a complete comedy, and that's why I really don't like that movie. Because almost everything in that movie is a joke. Even the serious moments are broken up by things like, oh my gosh, it's Peter's tingle. But in this movie, even the serious moments get their time to shine. Not just the funny, hilarious, comedic moments, like Ned doing magic, which is pretty funny. Like, yeah, like I said, Aunt May's scene and Spider-Man getting his revenge on Green Goblin near the end of the movie is such an amazing fight. He's like completely beating him up, Tom Holland. When Tobey Maguire gets in the way, and when Tobey Maguire got stabbed by Green Goblin, I legitimately thought he was gonna die. Like, I bet most people did, and I was gonna cry right there. Like, the whole movie I hadn't cried, even when Aunt May died. I'm not much of a movie crier when I see movies. But if Tobey Maguire died, I'd be so upset. If not for anything but just the memes. So, but what I think is truly at the heart of this movie is Tom Holland's Spider-Man's character development. Peter goes from sort of an impulsive teenager in the first 2 movies, well, an impulsive teenager in Homecoming, a sort of moody teenager in Far From Home because he just lost his mentor, to an actual, sincere, responsible hero by the end of this movie, accepting what he's done and taking responsibility for his actions. And if you saw the movie, which, if you're at this point in the video, please tell me you've seen the movie. He makes the whole world forget who Peter Parker is to stop all the other Spider-Man villains from coming through into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So he basically sacrifices his life, well, not his literal life, but his social life to save the universe, which is amazing. And it's a great character development for someone who's felt like a kid in the past two movies and now feels like an adult.
Sick of him treating me like a kid all the time. It's not cool.
And this is the first movie where Spider-Man in the MCU feels more like Spider-Man instead of Iron Man Jr. or Iron Boy. Like, he actually feels like he stepped into his own character, his own sense of self. And I will say, Tom Holland's acting in this movie is amazing. He was a good actor in the first two movies, but in this movie, he took it to a whole nother level. He actually got sincere and dark and upset. And it was so awesome to see Tom Holland giving us a darker version of our MCU Peter Parker, especially at the end when he's beating Green Goblin to a near pulp. And I will add, Ned Leeds and MJ Watson, apparently her last name is Watson, which I really like they added that for Zendaya's character. But MJ and Ned were given a lot to do in this movie. They weren't the main focus of this movie like they were in the last two movies, specifically Far From Home. But they were still given a good amount of screen time, and I will say that almost every character in this movie gets their own time to shine. Even Doctor Strange, who gets completely snubbed in the second half of the movie, has his moments and his funny jokes, like that Scooby-Doo line, which I didn't find that funny. And yeah, everyone in this movie got their time to shine, their chance to shine. Even Sandman and Lizard got their chances to shine. So I really like that this movie is balanced, unlike some other Marvel movies. Spider-Man makes the whole world forget, or Peter Parker makes the whole world forget who he is. Which, yeah, it makes a really big plot hole. Like, how do you forget who Peter Parker is but remember who Spider-Man is? But I will let it slide because this movie is so good. But it's a little bit jarring. A little bit jarring. And the after credit scenes, like I said, the Doctor Strange trailer was kind of confusing. But I'm still hyped to see Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, and America Chavez team up. And hopefully Loki in that show. And the first after credit scene shows Eddie with the Venom symbiote inside of him, talking to a bartender about the Marvel Universe. And it's really funny, but I'm kind of upset that Venom got so wasted in this universe. Because all that really happens is Venom gets sent back like all the other villains do at the end of this movie. And a little piece of the Venom symbiote stays behind on the bar. Presumably going to abduct someone soon. Hopefully Flash Thompson. Because, yeah, Flash Thompson becomes Agent Venom in the comics. But I'm still upset we don't get to see Tom Hardy's Venom fight Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But I'm holding out hope that in one future movie, maybe the next movie, we get to see that happen. So, well, this after credit scene disappointed me. It didn't detract from the movie as a whole. And I still have hope that and faith that Venom will show up sometime soon. So those are my thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home, which, if I had to rank it with the other two Spider-Man movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'd possibly put it above Homecoming. I know Far From Home's at the bottom. I don't like that movie that much. But Homecoming and it are pretty closely tied right now. I'm gonna have to give it some time to like simmer and like resonate in my mind before I make up my mind. But yeah, I really like this movie. It's amazing. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Entertainment scale, I'll give it an A+. I haven't rewatched it. I don't know if it's rewatchable. But while I was watching it, I was so attracted to it the whole time. Even when I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the movie, in one of the slowest parts, the apartment scene, which was pretty slow, not gonna lie, one of the worst parts of the movie, it was still interesting. And I couldn't go to the bathroom because I was like, something interesting is gonna happen. I can't miss anything. So that's how good this movie was. JM Comics, out.